out this the decision that it's open in this manner so that the county also knows what is expected of them. And I'll give an example that if you appeared before the professor with a research proposal, there is a way it must be written. You don't write it the way you are taught in your village. You write it in the manner that is prescribed and within the methodologies that are accepted. And that's the same thing for this exercise that we're doing here. So it's not that the professor does not deserve his title, but he has just found himself in a situation that is different. All of us, when we go to defend our proposals, we are brought down to earth, not because we are not clever, but because we are not complying with the requirements of research and the particular profession.
Chair, for me, I would like to support Madam Dulo's position.
Chair, just one final point I've forgotten, and this should be the last adjustment we are going to make for Murang'a.
Correct. Chair, we will request that we put to a vote. Number 2 is that let the entity go back, give them maybe 2 weeks, go and cross-check their responses vis-a-vis what we have here. If anything is missing, they provide us with that table. Probably share with the OAG office, tick what is available, and then what is not available, we note. Then if it is a serious issue, Chair, we refer to the EACC and other stakeholders to do follow-up, so that we don't run through documents or answers or responses from management that does not. So, Chair, I think I agree with Senator Dula and Senator Onyonga that looking at the progress we have made for the last 1.5 hours or 2, we are not making any progress because there is no justification to some of the responses that have been made. And this will give an entity a time, even if governor will go and form a small subcommittee to do follow-up on some of these issues. For example, on 600 million, you should tell us the supporting documents, we have gotten this is what is meeting, they prepare a table, then they share with the OAG, and then it is shared with the committee, then it will be even faster during the engagement with the entity, instead of just us having a meeting for the sake of having a meeting.
So I don't see any other query. Governor, what do you have to say before we take a position?
No, first is to thank the committee, Chair. You have really done the people of Murang'a the right thing. The reason being, when we came here, the documents from Murang'a for this year, which is 2020-2021, were 0. Through your interventions and pushing, we are now at 57%, and I agree with you. There is every likelihood maybe money was stolen. There's also every likelihood maybe even what has been provided is not the right thing. So we are in not for you. There's every likelihood even this 57% we are at maybe will not have arrived at. And therefore we want to associate ourselves with the committee, the recommendations, whatever sanctions you will or directions you will issue, we will definitely consider. And we believe we are in not for the good work you have done. Most likely will not have reached this level of at least accounting for 57%, and we give you an assurance that we will definitely take that into account. As to your representation concerning the officers who may have done or had this problem of a very negative audit report, we have heard you, and we will definitely take your representation very strongly, probably next time when we come back. But we believe, maybe just to comment, your effort has not been in vain. There has been progress over that period, in particular, at least accounting for 57% of that amount. But I agree, the 600 or so million is not a small change. Even 1 shilling for the public is huge, and we definitely we will comply with your directions. Thank you.
Senator Dulo, why were we fighting last week for counties to get 9 billion more? Yeah. And why is the Senate this afternoon passing the resolution for counties to get 400 billion? And yet you find a few persons within those counties.
Chair.
Senator Matthew?
Point of information, the Senate already passed that yesterday.
Yeah, that was a report.
And in fact,
there's a bill.
You were recommended for award by the president on the good job you did alongside others. Although we wanted 415, but you came back with 400 billion.
And then 600 million cannot be accounted for. You see, that's a tragedy. And we put up a fight, Senator Kang'Ata, you have always put up this fight. Then 600 million cannot be accounted for. Out of that 9 billion, perhaps Murang'a is going to get 400 million.
Yes.
Then you come back 2 years later with the same crooks that you're having, that you cannot justify 600 million. It is sad. It is sad. We cannot say that let the Murang'a people fry themselves. No, this is not Murang'a people money. This is money that has been contributed by the people of Kisii, people of Nyandarua, comes into a pot, we send to Murang'a, then you guys decide to disappear with 600 million. It can't be business as usual. Senator.
Chair, the other issue, Your Excellency, that I wanted to bring your attention, and please look at it as you are going to give us a report on the next session. You know, all the donor funding agencies have said, if you have an adverse opinion, they will not give you money. I hope you understand that. So the reason why you see we are pushing this for our counties to clean up all the messes, whether they are past or current, is because immediately you have an adverse opinion, the donor agencies, you're talking about urban development, you're talking about health, you're talking about industry, you're talking about environment. Imagine Murang'a missing out on close to 2 billion shillings. Those are the issues we are engaged with.
Let me then bring this to a conclusion and again give another example of where Murang'a is losing out. That under the Kenya Informal Settlement Program, we looked at the schedules with the CS Alice, who I think comes from Murang'a by birth, and she was quite embarrassed that Murang'a County did not appear on the schedule of recipients for KISIP 2. My county, Homa Bay, was receiving 1.45 billion Kenya shillings, 1.45 billion under the Kenya Informal Settlement Program. The rest of the counties were getting 300, 400, and so you are missing out on opportunities because you are too soft on the people who are supposed to be providing proper reports on your financial affairs. But just to bring this to a close, at our last meeting, we queried the expensing of 1 billion Kenya shillings as other payments. And we directed that the county executive goes back and breaks it down to the satisfaction of the Auditor General. Today, out of that 1 billion, we still do not have a proper explanation. And globally, there's still 600 million that cannot be explained. Even the 700 million that has been provided to the Auditor General, the Senate sitting here today has no visibility on the authenticity of the records that have been presented to the Auditor General. And I do not think that that verification should squarely lie with the Auditor General. They perhaps should pass it to an investigative agency. What asks this committee is that the officers who are responsible for the mess are still at the scene of crime, and they've still been rewarded with prestigious positions, which gives them an opportunity to continue altering records. If they were genuine, and if they were committed public servants, they ought to have provided evidence of that expenditure, because that expenditure could not have passed without the Chief Officer Finance, the Directors of Accounting, those persons whom you've continued to retain in your administration knowing. So this committee finds it unfortunate. In fact, we would take a view that you have been captured. There's been county capture in Murang'a. You have been captured by the crooks of the past, and that is why you are unable to do anything about them. And that is why you have carried the excuse that your chief officer is sick, and that's why he cannot come here. We needed that chief officer here. So Governor Kang'Ata, you must break that capture if you are going to succeed. We sense a lack of seriousness on the part of the executive to ensure accountability. Even if this expenditure occurred when Governor Kang'Ata was a senator and a member of this committee, as a chief executive officer, you know what your responsibility is. We do not want to reach the conclusion that the current administration is trying to fix the past administration. But the conduct of the executive so far would point to that. It would be easy for someone to imagine that there is a vendetta, or there's a witch hunt, or there is an effort to put the previous administration on the dock. I wouldn't want to get to that conclusion, because knowing Governor Kang'Ata, we have been with him around, I've never taken him to be a very vindictive person, unless it is the cartels that have captured him that are pushing him towards that direction. We shall therefore direct the EACC to take a keen interest to confirm the integrity of the 700 million worth of records that have been presented, to investigate how 600 million was reported as having been spent without supporting documentation, to extend the scope and breadth of the investigation beyond the governor and his spouses to the chief officers and to the persons who had constitutional responsibility to maintain custody of records, and to consider investigating and recommending prosecution for the violations of the Public Audit Act, for the violations of the Public Finance Management Act, and for the violations of the procurement law. Indeed, for the violation of the constitutional principles that requires persons with responsibility to manage public funds and resources to conduct themselves in a certain way. So going beyond the money that is alleged to have been stolen, we must also look at what the law requires officers in county governments to uphold and to observe. Under the Public Audit Act, provision of records is a requirement. Non-provision of records is an offense. It is high time someone was taken to court on that account. Because if you look at the quantum here, 1 billion, that is big enough for us to ask for someone to go to court over violation of the Public Audit Act. For the PFM Act, I think it's a long cocktail of violations. So we will be also, for the individuals who are members of professional bodies, we had made that directive last time, and that's why I didn't bring that conversation again, but we'll also be providing further evidence to ISPAC on why their members' action should be taken against them, and why, in the case of advocates, you are barred, you are struck off the roll of advocates. We shall be asking ISPAC why such action should not be taken against their officers, of course, after being given a fair administrative action. In my view, it will be futile to come back to consider this report. The entire report is a cocktail of crimes and illegalities, and we want the EACC to take it up and be guided by what Senator Omtata has said, that it cannot be open-ended, it cannot be forever, it cannot be like a snake that goes into hibernation and then wakes up when someone does a political misdeed. It cannot be something that is then used to settle political scores. We'll be having a meeting with EACC in the next 2-3 weeks, and we expect that this is a part of the conversation that we shall be carrying over to the EACC. So, honourable members, in my view, is that the report we are taking back to the House is that we were unable, the county executive was unable to explain expenditure, and we therefore agree with the report of the Auditor General. If there are some areas in your management, in your chairman's brief, where you are saying that supporting documentation has been provided, we shall take note and we shall agree with you. But where it has not been supported, like in the case of the 600 million or the 1 billion other payments, we are taking that resolution to the House that Moranga could not account for that amount of money, and therefore we have recommended that criminal investigations should follow. I think, members, with that then, in our mind, we are done with this report. This report is a story of theft in Moranga. And so let EACC and perhaps there could be matters that DCI can also be seized of. But I think EACC should be the lead investigator in this case. For 2021-2022, we stood it down for the reasons that I described earlier, the changes in the reporting templates. So we shall consider 2021-2022 alongside 2022-2023 because they had been prepared in accordance with a new template that had been communicated by the Public Sector Accounting Standards Board. Senator Mofaya from Tharaka Nithi, please go on record.
And sorry for coming late. This is Senator Mwanta Kataya, Tharaka Nithi County, and member of this committee.
The meeting